Welcome to Evergreen Conversations, a breakthrough audiovisual storytelling medium that serves as a platform for news, entertainment, sports, and culture. My name is Freddrell Green, the host and executive producer of this show. And on our second season and our first episode back, we have a special guest with us today. We have the sophomore class president of Morehouse College. He's also a member of the Collegiate 100 chapter here at Morehouse, and is just very engaged in a lot of different organizations and activities, and just a prime example of leadership on Morehouse College's campus, which I am a student of. Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Norington-Reaves.
Thank you so much. Again, my name is Joe Norington-Reaves. I am a sophomore philosophy and economics double major from the south side of Chicago, Illinois. And as you mentioned, this year I serve as the sophomore class president for Morehouse College. In addition to, I'm also a member of the Morehouse College. So if anybody's watching wants to join the Peak Club, please hit us up. So yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Joe, I want to start off by asking you about how was your second year, moving back into Morehouse. First off, I want to talk about, what have you gotten out of your freshman year at Morehouse? How have you grown as an individual, and what are some lessons that you're going to take away from that first year and implement into the second year at Morehouse?
That's a really good question. So the first thing really that I learned from my freshman year was how to not just be somebody that had access to information, but to also be somebody that could apply the information that they had to. I consider myself to be relatively intelligent, and me being in a friend group where I was around a lot of intelligent people, what I saw many times that we didn't apply the information that we had, so we couldn't see the success that we wanted to have. Another thing that I saw, and I was reading this book actually a couple of weeks ago, and what it said was we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. And I recognized that my systems academically and some other things are just creating boundaries for other people. The systems that I had to, that I was living my life, using to live my life on a day-to-day basis did not garner the success that I wanted to have, aside from the student leadership stuff, So those are the two really, really big things that I got from my freshman year that I'm keep taking with me going into the sophomore year.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So I also want to talk a little bit more about, what your role in the sophomore class council is about. I noticed that you were elected actually last year, if I'm correct, to serve this year as a sophomore class president. So if you could expand upon what that role means, because a lot of people who are listening may think that I'm throwing around the word president and you're the SGA president, which is not exactly the case. There's multiple different roles in, Morehouse for leadership. So if you can educate our audience on what your role is and your job is, and, how it applies to Morehouse.
Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna start with the council as a whole. So the sophomore class council represents the sophomore class and acts as an intermediary between sophomore class and administration. In addition to that, we also happen to be the sole proprietors of creating the sophomore experience at Morehouse College. As we know, Morehouse caters a lot of its time, energy, and money to creating the freshman experience and getting people acclimated to the environment at Morehouse College, but there's not as much investment into prolonging that experience at Morehouse College. And so the sophomore class council steps in to do that role for the sophomore class. In my role as president, I am, again, one of the liaisons between the sophomore class to administration. And furthermore, my job is to host meetings within the sophomore class to reach out to other organizations so that we can work with them to try and create as much unity within the AUC and try to bring as much resources as we possibly can to the sophomore class and try to ensure our success. We have a lot of talent in the sophomore class. Our class alone is probably one of the most talented groups of individuals that I've ever seen in my life. Mm-hmm. And my job is to aid in bringing that talent to the surface in whatever capacity I can in my tenure.
So speaking on the importance of having a sophomore class council, and this doesn't really just apply to Morehouse, just college in general, could you speak on why it's so important to have a class council for, a specific class in an institution, because we talk about all this different leadership that's all around campus. We talk about all this different talent, but, for certain people, all of that leadership all over the place isn't really the answer for them. They need something that hits a little bit more close to home, someone in their class that they can relate to. So sort of speak to the importance of why, it's so pivotal to have a sophomore class, or just any class in particular, a council that aligns its goals towards that specific class's success.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it pretty much. I mean, it's the fact that you have somebody that is of your same class that can speak to the issues that you are facing and can aid in trying to find solutions to the problems that we have on our campus. And in general, across campuses, I mean, wherever you have a student body, there will always need to be representation of that student body, similar to how we have our governments, and now our governments are supposed to represent the citizens of whatever district, state, city, whatever that may be that they are representing. And so for us as students in college and undergrad and even in graduate school, it's important to have representation because that acts as a medium through which communication can be fed to administration. And that's extremely important.
So talk about what are some of the plans that you may have for the sophomore class this year? What are some things that you may be working on that you can talk about? I understand that, with these organizations, there are certain things that are in development that folks just can't know about yet. So if you can expand upon what do you have planned for this sophomore class, and how are you going to make this year a successful year for our class?
That's a good question. So this year, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. Last semester, once I was elected and was thinking about what do we want to do for this year, the main thing that came to mind was community service. A lot of brothers came to me looking for community service opportunities and asking me, well, how can we get involved on campus? How can we get community service hours? How can we do this? How can we do that? And one of the things that I wanted to do was try to create more community service initiatives for the sophomore class so that we can get involved in the AUC, get involved in the area to try to make a positive impact. So definitely community service initiatives is the big thing that we're looking at right now. Another thing, obviously, is the Miss Sophomore pageant. We are still planning. We have our informational coming up soon. So we have that very, very large event. And another thing is we're working with other class councils in the AUC to try to create an event where we can kind of recreate an amicable space in which we can all get together. Really just another large kickback saying, hey, we all go to school in the same place, faced with the same issues. Why don't we just come together and quote unquote break bread, I guess you would say.
Right. And speaking on sort of what you were talking about how, hey, I'm trying to find community service, I'm trying to find ways to get involved. Could you speak on, and because this is sort of an issue that I see around a lot of different students, not just in our class, but in general, a lot of people seem to have this mindset that it's so hard to find opportunities, to be that pinnacle man of Morehouse. You see all these different people that are out doing all these different things that are, just exemplifying the pinnacle of Morehouse every day in each and every organization. Like I'm a part of the Maroon Tiger. You got folks a part of CASA. You have folks a part of the student government, but everybody isn't a part of that, and they want that same opportunity. But to them, it seems like it's so competitive. So could you speak on your thoughts on that matter? On the fact that Morehouse, and then they were telling us this when we were coming in, that Morehouse is like this competitive space where it's just so hard to really be mediocre, but it's also very hard to be the best of the best.
Yeah, so speaking from personal experience, my first few weeks at Morehouse, I was met with insane imposter syndrome. Now that I'm at Morehouse, now that I had the year that I had my freshman year, I kind of got a little bit over that. But for me in high school, I really wasn't the guy that was involved. And then I got to Morehouse and I saw an opportunity and I said, I got to take it. So the big thing for me when it came to leadership was just taking opportunities where they happen to be there. And imposter syndrome, it gets pretty much each and every one of us in some capacity. And that interferes with us getting involved the way we want to get involved and us being that pinnacle Morehouse man. And I'm going to challenge that pinnacle Morehouse man idea. I think that the pinnacle Morehouse man is just us becoming the best versions of ourselves to the best of our abilities with the time that we have here at Morehouse College using these resources. And getting involved in community service, there's a lot of organizations that are actually looking for us to come and get involved with them. For example, City of Refuge Atlanta, I organized as a solo venture at the end of last semester. I organized a community service excursion, I guess you could say, to City of Refuge Atlanta on their West End campus. And they house displaced individuals. They house women and children that have or were products of sex trafficking or victims of sex trafficking, people that are recovering from drug abuse. And they're teaching people how to get into trades, how to do various different things to get their lives on track where they want to go. And they want undergraduate students, they want volunteers to come in and help them with their mission and to continue good work within our communities. A lot of these organizations, though they want us to come in, they don't necessarily have the mediums to reach us through our schools because there's a marketing, there's like a wall there that there's a fine line that people got to go through to try to get to our schools, right? And oftentimes they're not able to reach us in ways they want to. But with regards to these organizations, they're out there. We just have to look for them. We really just have to take the initiative to look for them at certain times. And like you said, for some of us that are involved in that competitive space, we know where to look. We know exactly where to go. We know exactly how to get involved and get these things available to us. And that's kind of why I wanted to run for sophomore class president and do the things that I want to do in my time as sophomore class president, because there's plenty of resources out there for us. Oftentimes we don't have the wherewithal or the knowledge to go for it, but it'd be easier if we could put those resources in front of us so that we could start to build up that confidence to now go venture out and get involved in that regard.
Right. And I want to follow up on what I asked you. Because this is actually a concern that I've heard from friends as well about this same topic. Do you believe that there is sort of a sense of gatekeeping in the opportunities that are on this campus? Do you believe that there is a sense of, I got to get my own, other people that don't get it, that's just how it's going to be? Do you believe that is the case here?
Can I ask you a follow-up question to answer that question?
Sure.
Do you see a trend of the same people running for different leadership positions and being big faces on campus? Because if the answer to that question is yes, then the answer to your question is yes too.
I think so, yes.
So a lot of times what we end up seeing is people that get into that niche of student leadership and they ride that wave and it ends up prohibiting other people from getting involved in that capacity. Now, I will say, I ran for 2 positions on campus. I happen to ultimately follow that trend of people that I'm talking about. But oftentimes what happens is people get into these positions and they forget that these positions are supposed to be for the people, are supposed to be for the students of the college. And we actually had a meeting today, sophomore class council, and I said the sophomore class council does not have any work to do without the sophomore class. So we can't stray from who we're actually supposed to be serving. For example, you got people that get into SGA. This isn't a dig on anybody, but it's in general. You have people across the country that get into student leadership and get into student leadership just to benefit their resumes, to look good when they go off to some other job or some internship. To me, that's completely redundant, and it takes away from the fact that there are people out there that want to genuinely do the work and want to impact somebody positively based off of their own personal experiences. And that's where I kind of get my motivation, is that there's people that have come to me saying, we don't have access to certain things, we have issues with our school, or we want to figure out a way to get involved so we can live the lives we want to live. Well, if I have some sort of information that might even give me some incremental advantage, to me, I feel like I have some obligation to share some of that information, to somebody to aid them in getting to where they want to be.
So to continue this conversation, I want to move it forward, talking about this current school year. Um, the summer just ended. Well, it's still summer technically to the calendar, but the summer just ended for us. We're back at Morehouse. A lot of people are coming off of internships. Some people coming from vacations. Some people coming from just work or living with the family. What advice do you have to students here coming back and also incoming students as well on how to navigate this school year and to have overall just a successful year in classes, extracurriculars, and all of that? What sort of balance or what sort of, how should they plan out that?
The first thing that I would definitely do is this is actually what I started to do is to map out. And actually, you probably remember this because Professor Davis put us onto this during freshman orientation.
Mm-hmm.
Go through all 24 hours of the day and map out all 24 hours of the day, including our classes and whatever. No matter how rudimentary or just minuscule, whatever task it might be, just to map out your day, just so you can have a rough layout of how you want to govern your day, right?
Right.
Another thing I would do is once you do that and you figure out how you want to go about your day and the time that you have allotted to your self-care, to maybe reading a book or homework, things of that nature, once you've gotten that out the way, think about, as you go throughout your day, think about what kind of person you want to be. And if you ever stray from the path of the person that you want to be, you can figure out a way to get yourself back into it by asking yourself a question like, is that what that person would do in this moment?
Mm.
That's what's been helping me. I've been reading. I'm reading 3 books at the same time now. Last semester I didn't read a single book. That's the changes that can happen as a result of that. And another piece of advice that I would say is run your own race.
Exactly.
Run your own race. I ran track in high school, and my coach told me that after I'd lost an 800-meter indoor 800-meter race, I was ahead for all 3 of the. Well, I was ahead for 3 out of the 4 laps,
Mm-hmm.
and I burnt myself out. And then I was trying to catch up to the guy that was in front of me. And at that point, I wasn't running my own race anymore. I wasn't managing my energy and monitoring how I was going to give my energy to the things that I wanted to do in that moment. And I took that with me, and I kept it while I'm in college, obviously. And now it's also running my own race while I'm in college. Getting involved on campus is cool, but there's a lot of expectations that can really take a huge toll on your mental health.
Exactly.
And the big thing that I would say is we got to figure out if you're going to get involved on campus, you want to do things like that, you want to push yourself. It's good to push yourself, but it's also good to know your limits.
Mm-hmm.
Get a chance to know your limits because you can't just do every single thing on the planet. And I'm a testament to that because I burnt myself out my first semester of college because I was trying to do too much. My second semester of college, I got burnt out again because I didn't learn my lesson. I got involved in Glee Club. I was working with Planned Parenthood at Spelman. I was doing Graves House Council when I was president of Graves. It was a lot of just over involvement and not enough of investment into yourself. You got to learn how to manage your energy and take a second to realize I need to give to myself before I give to somebody else or give to any organization.
Exactly. Self-preservation is always frowned upon as something that, selfish, but sometimes, a lot of times, it could be what saves your life, So exactly. So I want to end it off because I told you before we wanted to keep this to a minimum. I want to ask you, what is it that you have as a vision for success for the sophomore class? What is your goal as sophomore class president? Because I don't know if it ends after this year. So what is your goal for the sophomore class this year as the president?
My main thing is I want to make sure that people feel heard and that more people are able to get involved with their school if they want to. And well, those are 2. But my last thing really is I want to make sure that I'm able to reach people and meet them where they're at. A lot of the events that we want to hold, that we're thinking about holding, we're going to make sure that we cater to our class. because again, there's no point in having a sophomore class council if there is no sophomore class. So we have to remember that we're going to cater to our classmates and things of that nature. For me, my biggest goal is to make sure that nobody can walk away saying that the sophomore class council did not do some sort of work for their class and did not work for the class.
Exactly. Well, thanks again, Joe, for coming on the show today, man. I really appreciate you sharing your knowledge.
Sir.
Absolutely. And thank you all for listening to Evergreen Conversations, a breakthrough audiovisual storytelling medium that serves as a platform for news, entertainment, sports, and culture. We will see you next time.